Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Shasteen Show. My name is Scott Shasteen. Let's talk a little high school football on this fourth day of June. I am set to begin my 35th year as the voice of the Tullahoma Wildcats when the 2025 season kicks off August 22nd. Tullahoma will be hosting Shelbyville. The head coach of the Wildcats is Coy Sisk. In his fourth year, Coy 18-15, and had been to the playoffs a couple of times. Went to round two years ago. Last year the Wildcats were 6-5. They lost in the first round to Nolensville 23-14. Tullahoma won't have to deal with Nolensville anymore in the playoffs, but they do get to play them in the regular season. So let's go through the Tullahoma Wildcat 2025 football schedule just to kind of get us started here as we are going to expound on high school football over the next few weeks, next couple of months. Fall practice will begin. We'll have the dead period in fall practice, scrimmage games. You know, I've been all over the web and YouTube and social media. I've just not found anybody that's talking about Tullahoma high school sports in a consistent way, in a understandable way. So why not me, right? So let's kick the Shasteen Show back up and start with what is my favorite subject and probably the subject I know the most about, and that's high school football. And where else can that begin here than with the Tullahoma Wildcats? My Wildcats. Since 1984, I pretty much covered the Wildcats in one form or another, either as play-by-play man, sports editor of the Tullahoma News, filming the games at times. I've had a talk show for 20 years. So you know who I am and what I do. So that's my credibility. I've got this little trophy here that says I'm in the Hall of Fame, so I guess that adds a little credibility here. I was Murphy Fair's webmaster for 10 years, so I spent a lot of time studying all of high school football, not just Tullahoma, not just Southern Middle Tennessee, but statewide. I have a pretty good idea and a pretty good concept of what schools have done historically and kind of where they're at in their historic run. So we start with Tullahoma, state champions in 2021. Coach Olive retired after 29 years and Coy Sisk took over. Tullahoma's defense has been stellar. The offense has not been able to generate the point production that the Wildcats have needed to be highly successful. And I'll be honest, it's a tough schedule this year. Tullahoma's playing a tough schedule, and it begins with Shelbyville. I mean, start with the Golden Eagles. They were 11-2 last year. Shelbyville has now moved up to 6A, so they are no longer a region opponent for Tullahoma. But in a non-region opener, the Wildcats host the Golden Eagles. The next Friday, August the 29th, Tullahoma will travel over to Cardin-Gerald Field for the annual Coffee Pot. Of course, this will be the 100th Coffee Pot, so I expect you'll see the folks from Manchester and Tullahoma combined to put on a big show. It should be a big celebration. Tullahoma's won generally 65% of the games against Coffee County. Now, the Coffee Pot didn't start in 1924 when these two teams played. It actually started in 1936. They began awarding the winner the Coffee Pot Trophy. I'm not sure how it got so old so fast, but it did. Anyway, that's been going a long time. Tullahoma has a big lead in that. Week 3, the first Friday night in September, the Wildcats will host the Cleveland Blue Raiders, another powerful football team from East Tennessee. They'll travel over the mountain, down the mountain, and come to Tullahoma in week 3. In week 4, Tullahoma goes up to the Upper Cumberland, a place, wow, I can't remember the last time, and I'll find it, but I can't remember the last time Tullahoma played at White County. And we've hosted them a couple of times in the playoffs over the last, 20 years, 25 years, but traveling to White County for a road game, I can't remember the last time I did that. It's been a while. And then in week 5, Tullahoma comes back home, so they open the season home away, home away, home away. And that third home game is the 19th of September when the Nolensville Knights come to town. Now you ask, why would Tullahoma schedule such a tough opponent when they, no longer really have to play Nolensville? And I'll talk more about that as Tullahoma has moved in the statewide setup, kind of moved from one side of the state to the other. But tough game 5, non-region game against Nolensville. Tullahoma's first 5 games, no region contest. And so, the Wildcats line up Shelbyville 6A, Coffee County 6A, Cleveland 5A, White County 4A, Nolensville 5A. And then week 6, Region 4 5A begins as the Wildcats travel to Lawrenceburg for the first of 3 straight road games. Tullahoma visits Lawrence County on the 25th of September. The next week, the 3rd of October, the Wildcats will go to Lincoln County. Now, I'll talk later about these different regions and some of the matchups and the teams that will compete for top spots. But I promise you, the Tullahoma at Lincoln County game on October 3rd in Fayetteville at the Pit is going to be a big game in Region 4 5A. Tullahoma then will take a week off, traditional second week in October, take it off, and then on the 17th continue that road trip by going to Rockville, another 6A opponent the Wildcats have scheduled. Tullahoma finishes off the season very nicely in 2025, hosting the Franklin County Rebels October 24th and hosting the Columbia Lions October 31st. Some think that the Tullahoma-Columbia game could be for the Region 4 5A championship. If not, it will have important playoff implications. Remember, every Region 4 5A game is going to have critical playoff implications because there's only 5 teams. So one team's not going. 2 of the 5 get to host. So that's going to be the primary competition. The bottom will kind of work itself out, and honestly, right now, I wouldn't expect the 3rd and 4th place teams to go on the road and beat anybody in the playoffs this year. I think you'll have to host in Region 4 5A to get into the playoffs. So that's the schedule for your Tullahoma Wildcats. Let's talk about my background a little bit. I got a little background here. Got the Wildcat helmet, got the Neyland Stadium replica here. This thing up here, my grandmother, who lived to be 103 years old, she knitted that for me when I was just a young lad, probably 10 years old, maybe 8, 9, 10 years old. She knitted that for me. So that thing's pretty old. She enjoyed it. She was proud of it. I never let it go. Got some other photos here. There's both of my grandmothers. They both lived to be over 100 years old. So maybe I got a chance for a few more years. Anyway, we continue looking at area high school football. And right now I'm going to focus on the 4 teams that the Peterson Media Group will cover on the radio. Okay, that's Tullahoma, and the next one is Moore County. If you've been watching social media, you've seen the Peterson Media Group announce that the Moore County Blue Raiders are back on whiskey country where they used to be. All the Moore County games broadcast on whiskey country. Count on it. The head coach of the Moore County Raiders is Chris White. Chris is in his 5th year. He has gone 31-14. He's also the athletic director at Moore County High School. Now last year the Blue Raiders, after a strong 12-1 season, dipped a little bit to 6-4. That's to be expected after the loss of primarily Dawson White, great player who was Chris's son, still is. So the Moore County Raiders will open on the road at Community. Moore County, once again in Region 5, 1A. So there's a lot of region games. Community's not one of them. But Moore County will open with 3 non-region games, maybe 4. Yeah. The Blue Raiders will go to Community, then they will host Cascade, and then Moore County hosts Good Pasture. I like that matchup with a private school in Nashville. And then the Blue Raiders, very smartly, I think, as I'll talk about later, scheduled brand new school, Battle Creek, 4A squad. First year they're going to play varsity football. It's a great time to get them. It's a great facility. It's not that far of a trip to Battle Creek High School. We went there last year because the hurricane washed out. Who did we play at Battle Creek? I don't even remember. But it washed out a game, and we moved it to Battle Creek. It's an artificial surface. They're baseball, softball fields, artificial surface, brand new school. Great team to schedule for the next few years. Oh, me. I'm going to talk more about it, but I don't understand why Tullahoma didn't schedule them. But Moore County goes to Battle Creek on Thursday night, September 11th. So that'll be a remembrance ceremony of some sort, I'm sure. And then turns around to host Huntland as the Blue Raiders open region play against the Hornets. Region play the next week. Tullahoma, Moore County travels to Eagleville. And then non-region game at Smith County on October 10th. And then it's critical time as Moore County comes back home to host Fayetteville and goes on the road to face Cornersville. They're all going to be competing for playoff spots. Should be a great race this year in Region 5 1A, and that's a quick look at your Moore County Raiders. So let's move to the Coffee County Raiders. Coffee County coming off a 5-6 season. Of course, they're on Thunder Radio. The head coach of the Red Raiders is Roger Haynes. The AD, Brandon McWhorter. Last year, Coffee County had a pretty good year, 5-6, went to the playoffs, lost in the first round. But the Red Raiders have drastically changed where they play their region football, as has Shelbyville. Coffee County last year was in the region with many of the Murfreesboro schools, that tough Region 3 6A. But the Red Raiders and the Shelbyville Golden Eagles got a real break as they got placed in Region 6 6A, which is the Williamson County schools as opposed to the Rutherford County schools. Now, don't misunderstand that statement to mean that the Williamson County region, that this Region 6 is not a strong region, because it is. It's just not as strong as Oakland, Blackman, and Riverdale, just beating on you every week. So Coffee County opens the season, as they traditionally have, at Franklin County on the 22nd of August, and then the Red Raiders host Tullahoma. The first of 3 consecutive home games for Coffee County. September 5th, they'll step outside their region and host Wilson Central. And then Coffee County opens up Region 6 6A play on September 12th when they host the Franklin Rebels. So that should be exciting to see how Coffee County does in region play. And it doesn't stop. The next week, they go to Independence. And then on September 26th, the Red Raiders step outside the region to play Smyrna at Smyrna before coming back home to host back-to-back region opponents with an off week in between. So Brentwood comes to Cardin-Gerald on October 3rd, and then the Red Raiders are off on the 10th, just like many schools are. And they pick back up on the 17th by traveling or by hosting Summit. In another region game, they finish off with 2 tough road region games. Coffee County going to Ravenwood in week 10, to Shelbyville in week 11. That's a tough way to end the season. For the Golden Eagles, obviously I've mentioned them multiple times already, coached by John Dryden. Dryden has just done a super job at Shelbyville. tell you, Shelbyville, more than any other school around that I see right now, is a growing football power. Shelbyville is the beneficiary of, significant resources these days. And you'll see that when you go to Shelbyville for a football game. If not this year, then the Wildcats will go next year. But Shelbyville opens up after an 11-2 campaign, 3 straight road games. They've traveled to Tullahoma, then they travel to Marshall County. I love that Shelbyville continuing to schedule Marshall County. I'll talk more about that. And then the Golden Eagles, like Coffee County, except the week before, they open up Region 6A play at Franklin. So they get the first taste of region play. And then the next week hosting Independence, and then going to Brentwood and going to Summit. That's 4 straight region games in September. That is highly unusual. That's an odd region schedule. And then the Golden Eagles step outside the region on Thursday night, October 9th, to go to Clarksville. That's another tough non-region game. And then back in region play, hosting Ravenwood on the 17th, traveling to Hendersonville on the 24th, and then finishing off on Thursday night. I may not have mentioned that when I went through Coffee County's schedule, but Coffee County and Shelbyville will finish off on Thursday night, October 30th, in Shelbyville. So, we'll see if that has region implications or not. So let's take a look at some of these area teams and the region changes. First of all, Tullahoma, Columbia, Franklin County, Lincoln County, and Lawrence County were all in Region 5A last year, along with Shelbyville. And Shelbyville is gone, and those 5 teams are left, so they all 5 move to the other side of the state, to Region 5A. There's really 8 regions in football. And yeah, it's going to get tight for the Wildcats. Moore County stays in 5-1A. Coffee County and Shelbyville, as I mentioned, both moved to 6-6A. Marshall County and Giles County will stay where they're at. Marshall County in 5-4A. Giles County in 4-3A. And I include Marshall County and Giles County in this overlook of Southern Tennessee football, because even though most of the teams in their respective regions aren't really in Southern Tennessee, they both are, and they're both really good most every year. So always like to keep tabs on Marshall County and Giles County, along with Tullahoma's region schools, Moore County, Coffee County, and Shelbyville. And we'll delve more into the regions and the teams that are in these regions. In fact, we'll have complete region previews in the future, as well as we'll break these games down week by week, so you have a better idea of who else is playing, who's playing on the same week, what week are the biggest games. Lots of high school football talk heading into the season. I'm going to do a complete breakdown of each Tullahoma opponent, the all-time record the Wildcats have, some of the great games that Tullahoma has had against some of these opponents like Shelbyville and Coffee County, Franklin County, and Lincoln County. They've been playing for a long time. So, I'll bring some of that Tullahoma football history knowledge into, what this show is going to be about, because there's a lot of that ties in, obviously, with high school football. It's not, even though it's just Tullahoma history, as I've done the research, I've learned so many things about the area schools around here and the kind of records they had, the number of Central Tennessee Conference titles they've won, that sort of information. So you visit TullahomaFootballHistory.com and And you can see for yourself, that's just kind of the top and the heading there. But there's story after story after story about previous Tullahoma High School football teams. So, check that out. I'd love for you to see it. Love for you to follow it, visit it, update it, usually 2 or 3 times a week. And I don't know how often you'll get a Shasteen Show. Right now, I've just got free time, right? Just free time. There's no games to call. And I've got all summer. So what else am I going to do but start talking about high school football? That is my wheelhouse. Hey, I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time on the Shasteen Show. Take it easy.